The film begins with an ordinary family having dinner peacefully when suddenly someone rings their doorbell. Since they were not expecting any visitors, the father cautiously approaches the door. Not cautious enough, though, a hitman emerges from the smoke with a very clear mission: to kill the entire family and take the father's fingers, something that mobsters do. Changing the scene, it is time to meet the protagonist of this story. Fred Blake, an aging man who, together with his wife Maggie and their children, Belle and Warren, moves to their new home in the French region of Normandy. Judging by their faces, they clearly did not want to move to that dump, but they had no other choice. Once they finish unpacking, they nostalgically recall the previous places they lived, except for Fred, who demands that they adapt to their new reality. Later, while everyone else is asleep, Fred takes a large bag from his car and buries its contents in the garden. Inside that bag was a corpse. I think I'm beginning to understand why they move so often. The next day, Belle and Warren head off to introduce themselves at their new school, while Maggie goes out to explore the city. The only one who stays behind is Fred, since his wife reminds him that he cannot leave the property. So as soon as he's left alone, he steps out, though he quickly returns home. There was someone watching him at the secondary school. Warren soon catches the attention of the bullies on duty, who believe he is a millionaire simply because he is American. Perhaps the young boy doesn't have much money, but he certainly has enough wit to verbally humiliate them, which they do not take well. Maggie, for her part, is not enjoying her new home either. Wherever she goes, she hears the French belittling her for being American. According to them, the Yankees think they own their country ever since they were liberated in 1944. If you don't understand that reference, consider it homework. Filled with resentment, Maggie sets off a small gas bomb in a shop and leaves before the fireworks begin. Fred isn't the only one with bad habits. Speaking of him, he has found a way to deal with his boredom: a typewriter. Using it, he begins writing his autobiography, recounting the stories of his grandfather and father, both of whom laid the foundations of the Manzoni mafia. In fact, his real surname isn't Blake, and his name isn't really Fred. His real name is Giovanni Manzoni. But it's better to leave that identity in the past, especially since his head is worth $20 million, a price set by the American mafia leaders for snitching on an infamous capo to the FBI. During a break in the garden, Fred bumps into his neighbor, who asks him what he does. Forced to improvise, Fred proclaims that he is a writer of history books and that he is currently writing about the Normandy landings. He soon regrets mentioning that since his neighbor lived through those events and does not have very good memories of the Americans. Meanwhile, as Belle is leaving the secondary school, a group of hormonal teenagers offers him a ride in their car. Naturally, they don't take him home, but instead to a lake on the outskirts of the city, using it as an excuse to see him in his underwear. Fortunately, the Blakes know how to stand up for themselves, and if that weren't enough, they also take the car. When they return, Fred asks them how their day was, and they all reply in unison that it was fine. In the following scene, we meet Don Lewis, a mob boss from Brooklyn, who even while serving time, never ceases his criminal activities, or rather his personal vendetta, as he is searching for the man who betrayed him. Since the only evidence left is a set of fingerprints, his hitman Rocco sends him the fingers of the men who might be Fred, like the one from earlier, although so far he has not found the right one. Back with the Blakes, they receive the rapid visit of Robert Stanfield, an FBI agent in charge of both their security and surveillance. Apparently, the family is part of the Witness Protection Program, and Stanfield relocates them periodically, a task that becomes more complicated over time, since the Blakes are definitely not a normal family. Not since the mafiosos de Luce appeared at their home on that barbecue day in another boring day in Normandy had things been so eventful. Maggie entertains the FBI agents with her culinary skills, while Fred deals with the first major problem at home. Suddenly, all the water comes out dirty. At the secondary school, Warren begins to form his own gang among the rebellious students, earning some extra money which suits him well. In the dining room, he meets with his sister to update her on his progress. Meanwhile, on another day at the office, Bell fixes his eyes on Henry, a college student working as a substitute math teacher. All the girls fall for him, although Bell is the first to ask him for extra classes. At the same time, Warren beats up the bullies at the secondary school with the help of his new colleagues. They might be a bit odd, but they sure pack a punch. When Fred returns home, he encounters a surly plumber who proposes changing all the house's pipes solely to squeeze more money out of him. Clearly, no one can fool Giovanni Manzoni. Back in Normandy, Maggie confronts her husband about what he did to the plumber. Fortunately, she was busy distracting the agents at that moment, not exactly to cover for another murder by her husband. In his defense, Fred asserts that he did not kill the man. Rather, he took him to the hospital, where the doctor discovered that he had as many fractures as someone who had fallen from a 6th floor. Oops. With no solid argument against his wife's accusations, Fred resorts to his old reliable seduction. The truth is, he still has the magic touch. Sometime later, the Blakes organize a party at their house with the intention of meeting all their new neighbors. Naturally, Fred stays holed up in his office, trying to continue his autobiography until his daughter convinces him to come out. He becomes reflective and apologizes for having put her and her brother in a difficult situation. However, she assures him that he is the best father they could have ever had. Motivated by her words, Fred goes out to socialize, even though his French neighbors continue to criticize his skills with the grill and laugh at his American idioms. Fortunately, Stanfield appears before this fantasy can turn into reality. The agent also disapproves of Fred's decision to become a writer, suspecting that he intends to make his history public, and that would be a disaster. So Fred assures him that he is only jotting down random, insignificant thoughts. In other news, the protagonist introduces himself to the town's mayor in an attempt to solve the problem of the brown water. However, the mayor only beats around the bush. At least the visit revealed that the contaminated water is due to a local fertilizer factory. It was time to greet its owner. Meanwhile, Warren has to turn in a last-minute assignment related to a word game. The boy uses a phrase he heard during a barbecue in Brooklyn, and this phrase makes its way into the school newspaper, which is then distributed among local families. Eventually, a copy of the newspaper ends up in the United States, where by a twist of fate, it lands in the hands of Don Lewis, who recognizes the phrase written by Warren. After all, he was the one who originally said it. Immediately, Lewis warns his subordinates that his greatest enemy is hiding in Normandy. On another front, Belle finds out that today is Henry's last day as a substitute teacher, so she hurries to finish her math lessons. You know what I mean. Back with Fred, he faces, using diplomacy, the insolence of the fertilizer factory's owner. By diplomacy, he means he tortures the man until he confesses how to stop the water contamination. Desperate situations require desperate measures. At home, the protagonist catches Stanfield snooping among the pages of his book on landings, a book that deals with everything except landings. The agent reminds him that nothing from his past can come to light, and if he ever steps outside the property again, he will have to wear a GPS ankle monitor. Well, the very next day, Fred sneaks out of the house, not without first leaving a little dummy on his desk to distract the agents. Besides, the agents are more focused on listening to the telephone conversation between Belle and Henry, in which she tells him that she will not return to Normandy and thanks him for the pleasant experience, even though she had wanted to give him her heart. On another note, Fred sneaks into the fertilizer factory and leaves a timed explosive along with a small souvenir. After that, he returns home just in time to prepare for a screening he was invited to by his neighbors. Since he has to leave his residence, Agent Stanfield has no choice but to accompany him. He takes the situation with grace, mentioning that this might be the perfect opportunity to make friends. After all, they have known each other for 10 years. In the cinema hall, the audience is informed that the same mistake as previous years has occurred. The organizers got the wrong film. Luckily for the protagonist, the selected film is a gangster movie directed by Martin Scorsese. At the end of the screening, Fred is invited to give his opinion about the film, as the locals see him as an expert on the subject simply because he is American, despite Stanfield's watchful gaze. In the end, the protagonist ends up answering the questions with his own experiences as a mobster, from his early days in the criminal world to the atrocious murders he committed while taking advantage of his parents' absence. Taking advantage of the fact that his parents are away, Warren runs away from home with the intention of going to Paris, since the school already knows about his criminal activities, and he fears that he might jeopardize his family's facade. While waiting at the station, he sees a train arriving with a group of hitmen, labeled ADO by Rocco. This makes him change his mind immediately, and he tries to call his family. However, when Maggie arrives home and answers the phone, Warren had already left the phone booth. For his part, Stanfield informs his agents that they will have to relocate the Blakes because of Fred's recent outburst of sincerity. At the same time, Belle calls Henry to remind him how much she loved him before jumping off a rooftop. However, from that height, she sees hitmen bursting into the police station amid a hail of gunfire. Her heartache will have to wait. After obtaining the Blake's address from the database, the hitmen pass by the fire station to disable the vehicles. Today, there will be an emergency and no one will be able to attend to it. Just then, the explosive at the factory detonates, jolting Fred back to reality, while Stanfield takes him home. He also tries to contact the